The first thing I'd like to do is introduce you to somebody. So if Tammy will pull a picture up, this is Sergeant Edward Carter, Jr. Now, a little bit about him. He's an American citizen, but he was, if I remember correctly, he was born in China. He fought with volunteers in China against the Japanese. He later fought in Spain as a volunteer until the United States entered the war. Then he joined the U.S. Army, worked his way up to the rank of sergeant, and finally made his way to Europe. Well, there's a lot of things going on in his life at the time. And the America that we know today is not the same America that we had in the 1940s or the 1930s. So he wanted to fight in a combat unit. But at the time, and I'm going to use their term, at the term for the time, Negro soldiers were not permitted to fight in combat. So it was not believed that black soldiers, black men, would be too scared, or they wouldn't be able to handle the pressure, or whatever the case was. So they were not allowed to fight in combat units. So he was working as a mechanic and worked, in a motor pool there in Europe when they invaded D-Day. Well, over time, by the time we get around to 1945, they're getting a little needy for bodies, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean just they need people. So they finally said, "Hey, you know what? If you want, we'll put you in a combat unit, but you got to do one thing first. We don't want any black soldiers being in charge of any white soldiers, so you have to take a rank reduction." So he took a rank reduction to private from being a sergeant so that he could fight in a combat unit. And so, but did it willingly, right? 23rd of March, 1945, while on a patrol, and I don't want to get into any of the details, but basically they got attacked by some Germans. He and 3 other men, also black soldiers, who they went to go face the enemy. Their commanding officer wasn't even sure. "Are you sure that you can do this?" And he said, "I was a sergeant before I came to this unit. I know how to lead these men." It's like, "Okay, go for it." So he goes out there, fighting ensues. The other 3 men end up being killed. Sergeant, at this time, Private Carter, he ends up being wounded several times while trying to take out basically it's a howitzer, big gun, machine guns, and a bunch of other. He kills a large number of Germans, and in the end ends up capturing 2 of them. Well, he escorts those back to where his unit was. Meanwhile, he's interrogating them in German. Turns out that he actually could speak 4 or 5 languages. He's doing this while he is bleeding out. Okay? So he gets back. He tells them, "Look, this information I got needs to go to command right now. I don't have time to go to the medics. We got to get this information to the command." Because that information was where all of the locations were for the German troops. And by knowing where they are, we were able to take them out before we sent people in, saved a lot of lives, saved the mission, and obviously the rest is history, as we know. He ended up being sent to a hospital and recovered enough that he actually went AWOL so he could rejoin his combat unit. And they called and they're like, "Yeah, he went AWOL." No, he's fine. He's right here with us. After the war, he wanted to make a career in the Army and re-enlisted and everything. But in 1949, now bear in mind, I want you to think about something too. He came back to the United States after the war. Now he just fought and literally bled and almost died to free Europe from German Nazi rule, and then comes back to the United States where he's not allowed to use the same drinking fountain as a white person. And we all know the history, so I don't need to go into it. He stayed in the Army, got his rank back. Well, for his actions, his commanding officer wanted to write him up for a citation. Well, they wrote him up. They wrote him up for a Distinguished Service Cross, which is the 2nd highest award you can get in the United States military. The reason he wasn't put in for Congressional Medal of Honor was because no black soldiers received the Congressional Medal of Honor during World War II. The irony of that being that they did in World War I, and they even did during the Civil War, but none received them during World War II. And his commanding officer said, I knew if I put him in for the CMH that he was not going to get it, only because he was black. So I wrote him up for what I knew he could get. And he did. And he received this award, and it's obviously a very distinguished award, and nothing to be to laugh or mock. So war's over. He's home. 1949, he goes to re-enlist. They won't let him. Reason? Well, because he volunteered to fight in Spain. The politics at the time, he was deemed to be a potential communist. That's what they were labeling, basically, the people who had volunteered to go to Spain and fight. So he was forced out of the Army, ended up getting a job as at a factory in Washington. He has 2 sons and his wife, and he lived until 1963, where he passed away from lung cancer. That was the doctors said it was due to the shrapnel in his neck that gave him lung cancer. He passed away. Well, years later, and we can go ahead to the next slide. Years later, he was under President Clinton. They did a program where they went back and were reviewing records from World War II so they could properly honor men, in this case men, it wasn't women at the time, but who were eligible for a Congressional Medal of Honor. As you can see, he did get one posthumously awarded to his family on his behalf. His remains were moved to Arlington National Cemetery, as you can see in the photo. So, and that's a, kind of a happy ending, but here's the part that really got me the most when I was learning about his story. So he has all these things going on. He's fought in Europe. He's been wounded. He had to give up his rank. He can't drink from the same water fountain. He lost his career in the Army because of something he did a decade earlier that he wasn't even really a part of. What he taught his sons was this: love this country because there isn't a better one out there. So his family learned this from him. If you would, Tammy. Thank you. So it makes you think, why would someone say that when they have all of those things working against them here in this country? Why would you do that? Why would you say that? Love your country. There ain't a better one out there. Now, he had some experience. He traveled abroad some, obviously. But, I mean, again, this wasn't like he was enjoying the same liberties as white soldiers returning from Europe. It wasn't like he was he didn't get to make the career that he wanted for his family. One reason: gratitude. Gratitude. He was able to look at things in a way that most of us can't. To find the good even when there's bad. So, I'll give you some biblical examples. We have the gratitude of Job. All right? So, in the gratitude of Job, I wanted to shortlist this to make this very easy, because we've talked about Job a lot here in church. And I'm probably mispronouncing this, but the Sabaeans stole his oxen and donkeys and killed his servants. The sheep were burned to death by a heavenly fire. The Chaldean raiding parties stole camels and killed his servants with swords. And then his sons and daughters were killed in his brother's house when it collapsed in a heavy wind. All in the same day. So, what was Job's response? Well, if we look at Job 120, we see that, then Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, and he fell to the ground. What did he do? Did he cry? I'm sure he did. Did he get angry? Did you get spiteful and hateful? No. In 21, and this is what he says. So he worshiped me. He says, naked I came to my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. I'm going to draw attention to that. The very last line. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He had, by our accounts, he had every right to be angry, every right to be, hurt, but he wasn't. He still worshiped God. And in Job 1:22, in all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. I really found that telling because I've been there myself. When my father passed away, I was kind of like, okay, God, what are you trying to do? There's just a little anger. Like, you could have made this different. I'm not going to say I was like all mad, like I wasn't going to church or anything, but it was definitely a challenge. And, why is this happening? Questions. Not Job. And why? Because Job had gratitude. Job knew how to be thankful. And that is definitely a lesson we all take. So let's talk about gratitude. And there's all kinds of stuff out there about gratitude and thankfulness. But basically, I kind of chalked it up to two different ways. The first way is what I refer to as the gratitude of Moses. Okay? So the gratitude of Moses. So Moses taught us a certain way, a certain type of thankfulness, a certain type of gratitude. And in Deuteronomy 8:7, he says, for the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills. So he's describing Israel as just a beautiful land. In 8, we see a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, or we would say milk and honey. And in 9, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. So what is he being thankful for here? Now remember, they've been out for 40 years in the desert trying to find their way, right? So they've been without, right? Now they're getting this chance, right? They're gonna be there. They're gonna get all this stuff. Their lives are gonna be easy. They're gonna be comfortable. They're gonna be happy. So what are we thinking? This is gratitude of provisions. This is synonymous with sitting at the dinner table, and thanking God for that meal. Hey, thank you for this meal. Thank you for my job. Thank you for the vehicle. I got a nice car to drive. Thank you that I got this great family. These are provisions, and they're important. You should. It's courteous. If someone does something for you, oh, well, thank you for doing that. Oh, here, let me get the door for you. Oh, well, thank you so much. Appreciate that. These are provisions. Somebody's providing something for you as a service, nourishment, whatever it is. So that was the gratitude, the thankfulness that Moses taught us, being thankful for provisions. But now I'm going to talk about the other type. I'm going to talk about the gratitude of David. So David's was a little different type of gratitude. Neither are wrong. Neither is one better. But this is kind of a step up. All right? And you're all going to be very familiar with this. But Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Okay? So here we're starting into that provision part of it, right? Verse 2 is, he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. Again, we're still talking about provisions. Hey, I've got this, I'm doing well. I've got all the things I need. All right? Verse 3. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So you start to see a little bit of shift right there. And he's talking about not just provisions, but, it's getting deeper. We're talking about, how I feel. What are my emotions of the day? Having God in my life makes me feel fulfilled. But then you get to verse 4. And yea, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. So we hear this a lot, and I don't know about you, but I always kind of wonder, well, what valley of the shadow of death? Okay, wow, that's really kind of dark. What are they talking about? That sounds like something I would like from one of my favorite horror movies. Right? But looking at some different like NIV and stuff, they reword it so that even though I walk through the darkest valley. So darkest valley, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, that's talking about trouble, tribulations in your life. Maybe you're dealing with some health issues. Maybe you're dealing with loss, heartache. But look what he says. What David teaches us is that I'm still grateful. I'm still thankful, even though these things are happening to me. I will fear no evil because you are with me. You will protect me. Verse 5. So it goes even further. It says, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of who? Who? My enemies. So you're going to be seated at a table dining with your enemies. But it's okay. Because where's your focus going to be? It's going to be looking at God. Right? You're going to be looking straight ahead. You're going to be looking up. You're going to, hey, these people, they're going to try to hurt me. They're going to try to upset me. But I know that as long as I got God, that I'm going to be fine. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. So that even in those bad times, even when the enemies are coming at you, you've still got God. So this becomes a much, much deeper gratitude. And finally in verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So now we're finishing with hope. Because so we've got the provisions, we've got the Spirit, we've got God on your side in times of trial and tribulations. You've got God standing beside you when you're facing your enemies. And now we have hope. Hope that no matter what's going to happen, you're going to be fine. Right? So, I have a title for this. It is, Gratitude is the Key to Happiness. Now, I got a little saying that I use, and I kind of borrowed a little bit. I don't want to say plagiarized, but I kind of borrowed a little bit. But I tell people, so when I'm working with students or whoever, I say, gratitude is the key to happiness, but gratitude requires work and purposeful effort. Work and purposeful effort. It doesn't just happen. You don't say, I'm going to be gracious today or have gratitude today, and then you just do it. Right? It takes work. Coincidentally, I had an incident today, just today, where I had some guest speakers at the school from Ford Motor Company and from some schools, and they were talking with the students, and during lunch we were talking, and they brought up a name I have not heard in a very, very long time. It's a guy I used to be really close friends with, who basically, this guy kind of, look, I don't know how else to say it, but basically, at least how I felt at the end of it was that he stabbed me in the back. Okay? And they're talking about, how he's doing and whatever. Like, yeah, I know him. I didn't say nothing more. Because I'm not going to try to, to speak ill of the guy. I don't want to get down that road. But, it bugged me. I was like, oh, man, okay, what's he doing? But then I was like, okay, well, and just so you know, he's at some place teaching now. Well, we used to be coworkers. In fact, he used to be one of my instructors when I was at career college. And then I got thinking about it. I said, you know what? Good for him. Good for him. You know, I'm happy for him. And I can take a little solace in the fact that he's where he is today because of me. Because somewhere down the line, you know, I kind of brought him into the teaching scene, and you know, and while things didn't necessarily work out for our relationship, you know, it worked out for me. I'm where I'm at, where I need to be. He's where he needs to be. It's all worked out. So this is that. To me, at least, I'm trying. I don't know if I'm, you know, I'm trying at least to show gratitude like David. So, because what is the opposite of gratitude? Ungratefulness. I prefer the word resentment. So, you're like, oh, and that guy's got the job I always wanted. Man, I just don't like him anymore. And now I'm just resentful. I'm not having any gratitude. I'm just resentful. Oh, they're driving a nicer car than I am. Well, how about being thankful that you have a car? Right? Oh, they live in a bigger house than I do. Yeah, but you got a great house that keeps the rain off of you, and it's warm in the winter, and you know, if you don't have gratitude, you're going to end up with resentment. That's it. There's no in between. So I'm not saying, you know, it's 100% one way or the other, but you can certainly have gratitude in certain moments and resentment in others. But I think it's important to recognize those so that we can make them better, make ourselves better. All right? So Matthew 14, verse 14, I told the pastor I'm going to borrow from his sermon this on Sunday. Said, when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them and healed their sick. Verse 15, as when it was evening, his disciples came to him saying, this is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food. Now, Pastor Eric, he already talked about what were they doing? They were like, oh, come on, Jesus, we want to hang with you. We don't know those people are in the way. What were they doing? They were being resentful, weren't they? Showing resentment toward, because those people, the multitudes, had Jesus' attention, and they wanted it. They were like children. Mom, Mom, Mom. Or what do kids do when they want your attention, right? You're watching TV. You're right in front of them. What? Oh, I just missed a touchdown. Come on. Right? But when they want your attention, they get right in front of you, don't they? All right? So the apostles were being a little resentful. And why? Because they didn't have gratitude. They should have been thankful that Jesus was helping these people, these sick. Bear in mind, this is after they were already given the gifts of healing people. And what did Jesus say to them in 16? They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. I can imagine he probably said, like, go get them something to eat. Like, don't come with me with that stuff, that garbage. Go get them something to eat. Fine, you know. Being a little resentful, right? And to see Peter and James and Judas. So, and of course we know later, and I don't have these up on the screen, but we know later they went out on the boat, and I mean Jesus was trying to teach them a lesson. Now, the pastor said what? What was his lesson on Sunday? Lose the attitude. All right? So, but basically, kind of in the same way, seems like another way of saying that might be, hey, show some gratitude. No? Hey, oh, you think this is bad? It could be worse. Now you're out on a boat without me in a storm. But show some gratitude. You could have been here. You could have been up on the mountain praying together, but no, you want, okay, going out on that boat. I'll see you in a little bit. Like, are you ready to show some gratitude yet? Okay, I'll come out there. I mean, essentially that's what he was doing. At least that's how I see it. So, people that don't have gratitude are bound to become resentful. They destroy rather than create. I mean, we've seen this recently in the last few years. A lot of protesters. And look, people have a right to protest. I absolutely 100% agree with that. I defended that. I believe in that. Okay? But there's a right way and a wrong way to protest. Taking a can of tomato soup and throwing it on a Monet in a museum. I mean, you can't paint that? So you can't afford to own that? So now you're resentful to somebody else? So if I can't have it and I can't create this, then you're not going to either. Psst, there's your tomato soup. Right? Trying to destroy works of art. This is like a year ago. This was a big trend. Nobody liked it. Even the people who supported those protesters didn't like what they were doing. We love to demonize the rich and the wealthy. Like, my father taught me, I don't beget anyone their success or begrudge anyone their success. That's one thing I definitely learned from him for sure. I don't begrudge anyone their success. Because most often, those people put a lot of work, time, and risk into what they're doing. And if you're not willing to put it into work, the time, and the risk, then don't begrudge them. Why resent them for it? All right? So, we're going back. So, what's the answer? Well, we get the answer in Matthew 10. Jesus told the disciples, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Verse 7, as you go preach or proclaim this message, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Freely you have received, freely give. So I like that. Because, hey, have some gratitude for what you've received and share it. Share it. Now, we're talking a lot about, okay, I need to recognize when I'm being resentful and show gratitude instead. Try to recognize those moments in our lives. But then it becomes, well, how do I get other people to do that? Well, it's very easy. And this is a perfect example. We do it through forgiveness and grace. Forgiveness and grace. We can instill gratitude in others through forgiveness and grace. And if we can help instill that in them, then when they have that gratitude in their lives, then they become better people. I'm going to pick on Roy here for a moment. You don't mind, do you? He says that now, There's going to be like, oh, I got a plan for him. Oh, yeah, he's already taking notes. Look at that. So Roy helped me a couple years back install a water heater. I went to a tankless water heater, and I'm just making this up as an example. And he did a great job. It works wonderful still. So, but what if something went wrong? I could be Roy. Call him up on the phone, bro. Roy, like you're an idiot. The whole thing didn't work out at all. This thing's not running hot. It's not doing anything. It's leaking all over the place. All right. Now, how is Roy going to respond to that? He'll probably hang up, right? But how is he going to feel? How's he going to feel? How's he going to feel towards me? Resentment. It's like, man, I came over there to help him, and he's going to call me up and chew me out like that? Like, never do anything with that guy again. All right? He's going to feel some resentment towards me. Or, hey, Roy, hey, man, I want to let you know I really appreciate you coming over, but I found a couple problems. Is there a chance you might be able to come over and help me, and maybe we can figure this out and see what's going on with it? So here I'm offering some forgiveness and some grace. I'm not mad at him about it. Even if it was his fault, maybe he didn't tighten up something or didn't put enough pipe dope on it or whatever the case is. All right, I can approach this in a way that He's like, oh, yeah, sure. I can come over right away. I'm not doing anything. Right? And he can come right over and we can fix the problem. And now he's got a little, instead of resentment towards me, he's got a little bit of gratitude that I was nice to him. I was free. And he could look at, oh, man, that is so my fault. I totally didn't put in a pipe dope on it. I didn't get that tied. I hooked it up wrong. I can be like, hey, don't worry about it, Roy. It's good. We fixed it. All's good. All's well that ends well, right? And now he's going to have gratitude towards me and for that situation as opposed to resentment. So we can do that for others. We, through forgiveness and grace, can help instill gratitude in others. Right? Because all I did was get mad. What did I do in this situation first? Well, I became resentful towards him. And when I became resentful, he became resentful. One begets the other. But by showing a little forgiveness, first of all, gratitude. And you know what? He did come over and help me hook this up. So let me just call him and, explain the situation, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So that's how we then can do that, help others. Okay, this is how we relate with others, what we do. All right. There's another part of this too. So God has commanded us to give thanks. 1 Thessalonians 5:16. Rejoice always. Well, rejoice is another word for what? Gratitude, right? Gratitude. Thankfulness, right? 17. Pray without ceasing or pray continually. Okay? Again, our communication with God. And 18, give in everything, give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Or, as I have it written down here, give thanks in all circumstances. All circumstances. The good ones and the bad. Through the pleasure and the pain. Give thanks. Because our spirits will be far better off doing that than they ever will being full of resentment. So this is a command. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really ready to go against God's will. And we do it enough, unfortunately, and I definitely do. But I don't want to try to do it openly. And again, I recognize what this can do for us. And then finally, in Psalms 28, David reminds us again how to properly show gratitude. He said, "Blessed be the Lord, because he has heard the voice of my supplications." Or, in other words, my cry for mercy. So this is David in a bad time, in a bad way. Oh, Lord, just give me some mercy on all these troubles. Right? In verse 7 he says, "The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore my heart greatly rejoices. And with my song I will praise him." So again, even in the bad times, not just the good, we're to give thanks, show gratitude, because gratitude is the key to happiness.